The Fujifilm X-H2s, one of my most anticipated cameras, has finally dropped. And well, does it meet expectations? Kind of. So a lot of the main specs had already leaked beforehand, and I actually went over most of them. So I'm not really going to go into detail on all the different specs. I will probably just have it up on the screen right now so you can see some of the main things. But I am going to go over some of the things that stuck out to me, both good and bad, along with a few of the surprises. So one of the headline features that turned out to be true is this really does have a 26.1 megapixel stacked BSI sensor. So this is a very fast sensor, meaning that it's going to have very minimal rolling shutter, and it shoots 40 frames per second electronic. And since it is that stacked fast sensor, it means that it's very usable 40 frames per second. Along with that, it does have a CF Express Type B card, at least one. So that means that the buffer is going to be quite a bit better than what we saw in, say, the R7. I think in a lot of ways, the specs of this camera are kind of what people thought that the R7 was going to be. Even though the R7 is a great camera for its price range, I think a lot of people were expecting it to maybe be a little bit more expensive and a little bit more on the high end side. And what we got is a very good value camera that also has some great specs, but it's not necessarily on the flagship level like this camera is. But one of the downsides of the X-H2s, and has really been a downside for Fujifilm for a long time now, is the autofocusing system. Now this thing does track a lot of different stuff. It has human, animal, bird, automotive. I think it even has train in there. But like we were worried about and what we've seen in the past, Fujifilm doesn't seem to be quite up to snuff with their autofocusing system. I heard quite a few different reviewers say that it just wasn't as sticky as, say, the Canons or the Sone, and I don't necessarily expect it to be right up on par with them because they are the best at what they're doing, and this is adding extra features that they do not have, but it is a very big letdown, and it is one of the main things that everybody was hoping that they would address with this camera. Now, I did hear about from DP Reviews, they said they were able to mess around with some of the settings, and at least in the photography mode, it got very sticky once they were able to do that. But I do think what you're getting out of the box should be the setting that at least the vast majority of the people would want. That way, when you get your camera out of the box and you're shooting with it, you feel like you're getting the top of the line experience right out the gate, and it's really going to stop a lot of people from having complaints with the camera before they actually get to go in and tinker with it. So I really hope they can figure that out. And I've said tinker a little bit too much in the last few sentences, so I'm going to move on to the video features, which is really where this camera starts to shine. So this does have 6.2K, which is very impressive. Now it is only coming in at 30 frames per second, which is good, but I kind of expected this to have 6K 60. That being said, the quality of the video coming out of this camera is just incredible from what I've seen. It just has a particular look about it that makes a lot of the shortcomings that I'm going to be talking about seem way less in the grand scheme of things. The fact that this comes with F-Log 2, which was a surprise. I don't think many people had F-Log 2 on their Fujifilm bingo card. The fact that this has that and the dynamic range that you're able to get out of it, like what Jared Undone was able to show in his test, there's just something about the quality of the video and the look. I can't necessarily put a words to it. It just looks professional. Another thing that I was very impressed with is you can actually shoot ProRes in this camera, and it's not just the regular ProRes, it also has ProRes HQ and LT, so you get a lot of different variety with your ProRes footage, and I just think that that is some extra attention to detail that most cameras are not offering right now. Gerald Undone actually said they maybe give you too much choice in the video department, and I maybe would agree with them. I don't really have the camera in my hand. That being said, one thing that they do offer that is super cool is they have a baby screaming in the background of their videos. I think that's a really good feature. And that's something that you can just bring into your videos. It's very high quality coming out of a Fujifilm. You just have a baby in the background that just wants to cry. One offering that they do have that I think is super cool is they do have 7 custom modes on this camera. So even though they give you an abundance of choice, they also give you an abundance of customization. And these are not just customization for photography settings, but you can set video settings as well. And just the general look of this camera, to me, the body of this camera is very sleek and minimalist, and it just looks very high quality. Now, going to some of the downsides with the 4K 120 that we were hearing about, there's actually an additional 1.29x crop on the 4K 120. So that's slightly disappointing. It is still oversampling from 4.8K, so it's definitely going to be very sharp 4K footage, but this is already a cropped sensor. I did not want to see another crop to add 4K 120 on this thing. Even if they were just doing some pixel bending on the 120 to give you the full width of the sensor, and then they had this additional crop mode to give you the oversampled version, I would have preferred that. And I do think that the processing power should be there for them to be able to offer it, but I'm no engineer, so maybe I'm wrong. Now, another thing that was disappointing in this camera, or I'll say inconclusively disappointing, is the stabilization. So in some reviews, it looked like the stabilization was doing very good, and it does say up to 7 stops. But in other reviews, it didn't seem to be doing what we would hope it could do with an aps-c sensor. I know the X-T4 had some really jarry and kind of bad stabilization, so at least it looked a little bit better than that to me. I guess it just didn't live up to the expectations that I had hoped for it. But one thing that was a big worry of mine that turned out to be kind of a pleasant surprise is the heat management of this camera. It doesn't seem to have any real overheating problems in a practical sense. When the news of the fan came out, or at least the news that there was going to be a fan, it made me instantly think that, oh goodness, this is going to be a very bad overheating camera. Why would they develop a fan for this thing if it didn't have bad overheating problems? But I was kind of hoping and crossing my fingers that it would turn out to be exactly what it was. Essentially, this camera is very good at managing heat. It seems to be working for a very long time, even in 4K 120. But if you want to pull out the fan, if you're in a super hot environment, or maybe you're just wanting to do it in a very professional setting, and you don't want to worry about it at all, that's when you have this fan that comes in handy. So I really think this is a best of both worlds scenario. And even though I was a proponent of saying they should put that fan inside, I think that I was wrong, and I think that Fujifilm made the right decision here. So overall, I am still very excited about this camera. I'm very happy about this camera. I do think some of the things that I wish that they would address, like the autofocus, is still lacking, and the stabilization is still lacking. And those are the two things that I said, if they address these, then they're going to be on the top of the top. But they didn't exactly address it, but all the other things are so good that I came out of this announcement really wishing I could get this camera. Now, I do not see me getting it anytime soon because, to be honest, I have a setup that works great for me with the Sony a7S III, and also I am going to be out of country when this camera does come out. So I probably won't get it, but I really do love it, and I'm glad for Fujifilm fans. I hope that you guys like it as much as I do. Drop in the comment section below and let me know, were you impressed by this camera like I was? Does the autofocus and the IBIS still hold it back for you? Are you gonna get it? Let me know all that in the comments below. If you've liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And until next time, peace.